Welcome back to the Amp Surfer. This is episode something. I can't even remember what it is. But definitely thanks for dropping in. This one's going to be a doozy. Actually, this one might go off the rails a little bit. I think I mentioned in one of my other videos that when I was in hospital getting the amputation, some crazy stuff happened, some miracles. And if any of you have heard me talking before, you'll know that I've got faith and it's good and it's solid, and I don't mind talking about it. So this is going to be one of those. Definitely going to be talking about it. It's insane. Like, if you want to know that Jesus is alive and well and God is working in the world and the Holy Spirit's moving, you need to check this out, man. Like, fully need to check this out. So that being said, so we're going to backtrack to my time in hospital. I think my last video was I was super excited about walking with my new foot, the Maverick XC or something by someone, Autoblock. Anyway, and it is good. It's a good foot. But I want to backtrack to a time when I was in hospital, and the way that amputations work is, for someone healthy like myself, was you go in, you have your leg whopped off, and 4 days later you get out of hospital. And I can't remember if I mentioned it, but I ended up being in there for 2 weeks because of some blisters that turned up on the end of my, let's call it little leg, because that's what it is. Anyway, so that kept me in hospital, and my faith was, I was pretty confident that I was going to go in. It was not going to be a problem. I was going to have miraculous healing. It was just going to be brilliant. And and then it wasn't, you know. But oh man, me being in hospital allowed God to move through my situation. And I realized that really quickly. So on day 4, when I was supposed to go home, they took the bandage off and they saw these blisters. They're like, you ain't going home. And I was ready to go. The wheelchair had turned up and everything. So I was a bit, I was like, oh no, this sucks. Is it normal? What's going to happen? Blah, blah. Anyway, so I just kind of eased into a rhythm of being in hospital and let's get these things sorted out. So the pain levels that I went through during that time were phenomenal. You know, when a bandage gets taken off raw skin, that sucks. Really hard. Sucks, man. It's bad. And I was going through this every day because they were changing the bandages every day. And they could not get it right. They couldn't find a bandage that didn't stick to the raw skin. So every time they checked them, man, I had to grip the side of the bed. I was in agony. I was trying not to scream the place down, man. Oh, it was nuts. But people noticed something different about me. People noticed that even though I had to go through this pain, even though that, you know, it was a hard time, I had something about me that nobody else did. And that was my faith. And, you know, over here, you're not allowed to ask, no, nurses and doctors aren't allowed to say, hey, I've got faith. You have to ask them. And so I did. I asked pretty much everybody that I spoke to, oh, have you got faith? And anyway, my Bible was out on my bedside all the time, open, because I was constantly in it, you know, because I just get a lot of strength from that. And I get a lot of strength from praying and just seeking Jesus, you know, in every moment. And I still had to go through a lot of pain, but I had the Lord with me, and that got me through, that really helped me out massively, and people saw it, and that's what is crazy. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that happened, like highlight reels of my 2 weeks in hospital. So I think might have been night 5 or 4 or something. Nah, night 6 maybe. Yeah, let's go for night 6. Night 6. I'm in my little room, and it must have been about 11 o'clock at night, and everyone's in bed, and I needed some medication for the pain because it was nuts. And so I jumped in my wheelchair, and I wheeled myself to reception. And there was a really cool nurse there. I'll say nothing more. It was a dude, and he said to me, "Oh, here's your medication, but Craig, mate, can you tell me why you ended up having your leg off? Because you're not diabetic." And I'm like, "Oh, sure, mate. Let me tell you." So I told him all about the motorbike accident. I told him how I spoke. I had an argument with God. I told him about after that how I'd had a dream about running with a prosthetic on, and then the next day, the man at the post office had an amputation, and he had exactly the same circumstances as me. It was just nuts. It was off the chart. Anyway, his eyes were massive, and he's like, far out. That's and he had tears in his eyes, and I'm like, "Hey, bro, you okay, man?" And he's like, "Oh," he said, I used to be a pastor of a church." I'm like, "No way, mate, but you're a nurse." And he's like, "Yeah, you know, something happened to him, and him and his wife ended up splitting up, and then he had the church, he fell out with the church, and it wasn't his fault. It was just horrible for him. Anyway, he gave up his faith 6 years ago, and he hadn't read the Bible, hadn't prayed, hadn't listened to any worship music in 6 years. And then he heard my story, and then the Holy Spirit got him. He got a touch from the Holy Spirit. No word of a lie. Anyway, the next day he comes into his shift early, right? So he normally starts at, 7, I think. He came in early and he wanted to speak to me in my room. He came into my room and we chatted for ages. He said, "Craig, mate, you've changed my life." And I said, "What?" "I didn't change your life, bro." And he goes, "That story you told me last night, the Holy Spirit got me. And I went home and I cried and I wept and I prayed. I read my Bible. I listened to worship music. I'm born again." And I'm like, "No way, brother." He's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Mate, it wasn't me. It was the Holy Spirit." "Mate, it's not me, bro. I'm just telling you what happened. It's the Holy Spirit." And he's like, "Far out." It was so good. So good. He's given his life back to Jesus. He's on fire, mate. It was just amazing to see. And it had really nothing to do with me. That's like a testimony. That's like one cool thing that happened in hospital. Another really cool thing that happened in hospital was that I got moved up to this other ward. And so before they moved me, they gave me a new bandage. Obviously, I had to go through the pain, man. And then the nurse who did the bandage, not the previous guy, this other fella, he's like putting this bandage on. I'm like, mate, is that going to come off easily?" He's like, "Yeah, not a problem, mate. You'll be fine." So he puts the bandage on, sends me off up to the other ward. I get up to the other ward, and it's probably around about, 10 at night. And the plastic surgeon comes in with the ward nurse. And they're like, "Craig, mate, you're on our ward now, so we're going to have to change your bandage so that you've got our bandages. And we know what we've given you." And I'm like, "Oh, man, okay, right, let's get ready." Anyway, he started to peel the bandage off, and I just hit the roof. I was like, "Stop." And he's like, "What?" And I said, mate, no way, this is killing. Just stop, give me a breather, give me a minute. Hold on. And So he's like, all right, well, we're going to have to do it. So I grabbed the sides of my bed, and the ward nurse grabbed my arm, right? And she knew I was Christian. I knew she was Christian. Anyway, she grabbed my arm, and the dude starts peeling it off. This plastic surgeon fella starts peeling off the bandages. I didn't want to wake anyone up because there was a lot of old ladies on that particular ward, and I'm trying not to scream in pain. Right, this is real. It's real pain, man. I think it was somewhere I'd never been before. It took me to a place that no, I've not experienced, and it was so painful that my body went into shock, and I was shaking. I could not stop shaking from the pain, and the poor plastic surgeon's going for it, and the nurse, I could hear her praying under her breath, and I was like, oh my days, okay, and I was trying to pray too, and anyway, he managed to get the bandages off, and it took me ages to come down from that, from the shock. It was insane. Yeah, no, there's can't even explain it. It was horrible and intense. Oh, anyway, right. So I've got the ward nurse there with me. I've got a plastic surgeon there, and they both look at my wounds, and they both agreed that they were infected, which is probably why the pain was so bad. And my mind's going into overdrive thinking, oh no, this is going to set me back. And the plastic surgeon said to the ward nurse, we're going to book him in for surgery first thing in the morning. I said, are you joking me, mate? Does that mean? And he said, look, we're going to open up your wound again. We're going to clean it out, get all the infection out. And I butted in and said, does that mean you're going to have to cut my leg even shorter and then do the whole thing again? He goes, no. We'll just open you up, clean it out, re-stitch you back together again, and that'll do the trick. And he said, we'll be doing that first thing in the morning. So in the morning, I'll have a team come up. We'll get you ready, prep for surgery, and we'll take you down in the morning. I'm like, okay. So anyway, they go. I ring up my now wife, Helen, and I say, Helen, this is the story. So I told her the story, and she said, right, leave it with me. She phoned her home group, ladies and men. Good on you, Graham. And a few other people, and they prayed against the infection. That is it. They didn't pray for miraculous healing. They didn't pray for anything else other than against the infection, so I wouldn't need surgery, right? That was their intentional prayer, right? None of this flowery stuff. It was really intentional. First thing in the morning, I have a good night's sleep, by the way. First good night's sleep I'd had in like a week and a half, or a week and a piece. So, first thing in the morning, I've got an anaesthetist, 2 plastic surgeons, the other fella who does the chopping, orthopedic surgeon, and a couple of nurses. And they're all in my room with some gas in there, ready to give me that to take off the bandages, because obviously last night was chaos, and ready to take me down to surgery. Room's booked, I'm off. So they're all there, 7 of them in the room. Now the plastic surgeon, Colonel Baden, he's like, right, take a gulp of that stuff, mate. we're going to take your bandages off. And and I'm grabbing hold of the bed. And I'll tell you what, I didn't feel a thing. Nothing. There was no pain. And he takes the whole bandage off. And he's like, no pain. And then he peels off the little layer of film that the fella had put on. And he's looking at it, and you've got 7 people in the room ready to take me to surgery. And they're all looking at my leg going, well, there's nothing wrong with you. Hey, nothing wrong with me, bro. He's like, there's no infection. Seriously? There's no infection? He's like, there's nothing there. Now, the plastic surgeon who booked the surgery was there. He was one of the 7. And there was a whole bunch of other people. And there was photos taken the previous night, so they've all seen the photos. They know what they're looking at. And there's nothing wrong with my leg. I still had the wounds from the blisters. I still had a big cut where they chopped my leg off, but there was no infection. Not a bit. And they're all looking like, this is a big waste of our time. We don't understand what's happened. And I'm like, well, I think I know what's happened. And they said, well, what? So I told them. I said I had about 9 people praying for me last night against the infection. And I guess God's come through. Can't argue with that. Cannot argue with that, can you? So, I really wanted to share that because intentional prayer works. Now, I used to be part of the universe. I used to dabble in witchcraft and new age stuff and crystals and tarots and healings and all weird stuff, man. And I can promise you, none of that stuff that I ever did in my past ever come close. None of that stuff worked. This is the real deal. Now, if you've got something going on in your life and you've tried all the things I've tried and more, I would seriously recommend you try Jesus, okay? It's real simple. There's nothing special about it. You don't have to know anything. All you have to do is just talk like I'm talking to you and ask Jesus to give you a help, give you a hand. He's not a box of magic tricks, so don't be praying for a parking space or that you're going to get a good result on something. Be really intentional. See what happens. I would challenge you to see what happens. Because that's unreal, but not because totally expected with my faith. The way my faith is, totally expected. It's wonderful. And it's wonderful to share it. So, yeah. If you don't know Jesus, ask him into your life. See what happens. It will change you forever, I promise. And if you're having trouble, reach out to me. Reach out and I'll talk you through some stuff. All right? But get Jesus in your life, man. It'll change you forever. Right, thanks for dropping in to the Amp Surfer. There's more to come. Catch you later. Ciao.